The NBA has a new phenom. And today, we're not going to just celebrate him. We're here to ask a really important question. Do we need to protect him from the hype?
So let me ask you this. What if the single biggest compliment everyone is giving this kid isn't a compliment at all? What if calling Cooper Flagg the next LeBron James is actually the most dangerous thing the league could possibly do?
All right, first, let's get something straight about what's actually going on here. We're talking about Cooper Flagg, the #1 pick in the 2025 draft. He's 19 years old, and he's already making some of the smartest basketball minds on the planet just stop what they're doing and watch.
I mean, just look at these numbers on paper. They're ridiculous for a teenager. We're talking almost 20 points, 7 rebounds, 4 assists, a steal, and a block per game. And remember, he's not doing this in college. He's doing it against fully grown men in the toughest league in the world. But then came the number that changed the entire conversation, 49. That was his career high against the Hornets. He became the highest-scoring teenager in the history of the NBA. You know, this wasn't just hype anymore. This was a 19-year-old kid basically putting the entire basketball world on notice.
And then this quote dropped. It was from Brian Windhorst, one of the most plugged-in guys in the entire sport. He said he's only seen 3 other teenagers really blow him away like this: LeBron, Luka, and Wemby. But then he went one step further. He said the only real comparison for Flagg is LeBron James himself. And boom, that one sentence just exploded, and the NBA's whole narrative machine kicked into high gear.
So let's really dig into what that comparison actually means and, why it's a standard that's almost impossible for anyone to live up to.
Think about it. LeBron James isn't just another all-time great player. He's basically the most complete and physically dominant force the game has ever witnessed, right? Not necessarily the single best scorer or the best shooter, but the guy who could do literally everything a team needs at the absolute highest level for 20 straight years. That's the standard we're talking about. And that's where this all gets really complicated, because this comparison is just fundamentally unfair. It's unfair to Flagg, who now has to carry the weight of a legacy that only one human has ever built. It's unfair to LeBron, whose entire 20-year career is getting casually dropped on a kid with just 44 games under his belt. And honestly, it's unfair to us, the fans, because now we're locked into this narrative that the sport is going to spend years trying to force into reality.
But you gotta ask, why? Why does this keep happening? Well, to understand that, we have to look beyond the court and into the actual business of the NBA. We have to go inside the machine.
You see, the NBA desperately needs a new LeBron. When he finally hangs it up, the league loses its single most marketable star on the planet. So the league's promotional machine, which is one of the most sophisticated narrative-building operations in all of sports, doesn't just sit around and wait for stories to happen. No. It builds them from the ground up.
And here's exactly how it works. It's a really clear, repeatable process. First, you identify the undeniable talent. Then you select the biggest, most impossible comparison you can find. Step 3, you plant that narrative with just the right insider, and then you watch the media machine do all the heavy lifting. It works every single time. Until, of course, it doesn't.
See, the problem is, this isn't the first time the NBA has run this exact play. And once you start to see the pattern of incredible players who've been burdened with these same expectations, well, you just can't unsee it. Let's just run through the history real quick. Before Cooper Flagg, it was Zion Williamson. Before Zion, it was Anthony Davis. And before AD, it was Derrick Rose. Every single one of them was supposed to be the next big thing. I mean, think about Zion. The hype around him was the biggest we'd seen since LeBron himself. But today, he's actually missed more games than he's played because of injuries. It's just a brutal reminder that hype doesn't protect you from the physical reality of the NBA. He was never the next LeBron, he was Zion. And Zion is an amazing player, but that's not the story they sold us. And before Zion, we had Anthony Davis, a 7-foot-tall basketball unicorn. He's a truly great player, one of the best of his era for sure, but he never became the singular face of the league. And his one championship? Well, it came in the bubble, probably the strangest season in the entire history of the NBA.
And then there was Derrick Rose, the youngest MVP in league history. Just pure electrifying talent. The hopes of an entire city were on his shoulders. And then his knee went. And then the other one went. And he became one of the most heartbreaking what-if stories in all of sports. Not because he failed, but because the machine built him up so high before his body was ready to handle it.
Which brings us right back around to Cooper Flagg, because all of this isn't just history, it's a warning.
Let's be crystal clear about something.
This LeBron comparison, it isn't a basketball assessment. It's a business decision. It's the NBA signaling to its partners, hey, don't worry, the post-LeBron era already has its star. But just look at this slide. This isn't a basketball challenge. It's an existential one. It's just on a completely different scale.
Here's the simple truth that NBA history keeps trying to teach us over and over again. There was no next Jordan, no matter how many times they told us there was, and there will be no next LeBron. These players aren't templates you can just copy and paste. They are total anomalies.
So, what's the real takeaway here? The league never tells you what happens when the next chosen one just turns out to be, well, himself. What's the real cost of all that pressure when the impossible narrative finally breaks?
You know, the cruelest thing the basketball world does to its most promising young stars is tell them they're the sequel to a story that was never meant to have one. Cooper Flagg's talent is off the charts, it's undeniable. He deserves better than this. He deserves to be the very first Cooper Flagg. And if his first 44 games have taught us anything at all, it's that whoever that turns out to be is going to be more than enough.